So we are reading At the Dark End of the Street, Black Women, Rape and Resistance, A New History of the Civil Rights Movement from Rosa Parks to the Rise of Black Power by Danielle McGuire. And our sessions it started June 3rd and they last until July 29th. They are from 6:30 to 8.
What I did was I had so many questions that came out of this chapter that I ended up highlighting the questions that I really hope we can get to. So if someone would read the first 3 points, that would be great.
I'll do it.
Okay.
The first point, chapter 1 begins with the detailed description of events on May 2nd, 1959 in Tallahassee. Florida. Beagles, Ollie Stoudemire, and William Ted Collinsworth made a pact to go out and get a nigga girl to have an all-night party. The selected person was Betty Jean Owens, a student of Florida A&M University. Attended a ball earlier in the evening. The 4 white men approached the park student armed with shotguns and switchblades. Ms. Butterfield were ordered to leave the scene. Betty Jean Owens, however, was trapped. She endured a night of terror and brutality as the heartless white men raped her 7 times. Similar situations in other southern towns had often left African Americans without police aid. Nevertheless, Owen's friends reported the kidnapping to the police. Fortunately, on this question you highlighted was in his first experience with our group, Labeeb Hameed talked about how the role of the black man as a protector of the black women has been eradicated by our experience on these shores. Looking at the kidnapping of Betty Jean Owens from a feminist perspective, do you think it was the job of these young men, Richard Brown and Thomas Butterfield, to protect the young women, Betty Jean Owens and Edna Richardson?
Hold on, Benita. I'm sorry, Randy. I lost track because Benita's on the phone.
Okay.
You finished the reading?
Yeah, I just asked the question too. The question you highlighted.
Okay. Will you facilitate for a few minutes?
Georgette or
Okay.
Joelle, do you want to answer the first question?
Okay, I'll start it. Well, I think these young men, they were victims just as much as Betty Owens and Edna Richardson, because they were unarmed and they were facing 4 men with guns and switchblades. You know, it was besides just being, you know, just the act of they're going out. These white guys are going out to grab a woman, a black woman. You know, it was habitual. It was part of their culture of intimidation to, you know, keep everyone in a state of fear. And so, and also I think just the act of going out and you think, and not that I can imagine what's in the mind of a rapist, but they've done it so many times and their culture is really, you know, the community, the white community accepts it, you know, they get a slap on the wrist if they're even brought, you know, before the courts. It's low risk and they get a high reward because they get points, I guess, with the rest of the guys because they've committed this, you know, this crime, and it is a crime. And they've reasserted their power. They've expressed some anger, you know, whatever they felt about, you know, in retaliation for Brown versus the Board of Education, perhaps, or maybe even just something local that was going on in the community, and also their sexuality. They want to have sex with a black woman. So, Uh, the part about where the bee talked about the black man as protector of the black woman. That's a hot topic, and I can't touch
Yeah.
that.
Joel?
Uh, I believe that I agree with what Georgette just said. What I read about the rape in Tallahassee was I like to take things and take it out of um, a racial context, and I put it, I flip flop from the other perspective. What if these have been two Hispanic or Pacific Asian or uh, or black men that perpetrated the same crime on the on white people? When you look at what could these young men have done with people that are armed, and this is just a violent act in itself. As far as uh, have since we've been on these shores, have our role to protect black women, has it been, you know, because of slavery, has it been reduced? Well, it has, but the African American race is a resilient one, which we all know is how we got this far in the first place. And whatever we do for each other, we understand. We understand what has happened is about power, it's about violence, of your oppressor. You overcome that, by surviving the way that we have always survived. So even though this is a power trick where they fight, because rape is about power. It's more about power than it's about sex in itself. So whatever they they wanted to, whatever they want to do as far as the power is concerned, whether the white man, whether the black man, whether the white man, whether it was anyone, it's more about the power than anything else.
Um, so, in my opinion, I think that going to the police as a group um, to look for Betty was a act of protection and was an act of resistance, even though they knew that the police officers probably wouldn't search for the men and probably wouldn't indict the four men, but they did. And so in that case, I don't think there was anything the black men could do. Like Georgette said earlier, the white men were armed, they had guns and a switchblade, and the black men could have tried to overcome them, but they would have been killed in the process. And I think that's the reality, and we can't ignore that reality, even if we did want the black men to stand up and take like active action against the four white men. And on top of that, they were also outnumbered. There are two black men to four white men, and that's never good. And I think that in the end, what was done was really the best they could do, especially in a community where police don't care.
Mm-hmm. But, Randy, of course, I want a quick summary of everybody's responses.
Oh, you were on mute. You want everybody to just go down and tell you?
Yeah, unless you can do it.
Georgette. Basically, well, I fed off of what Georgette said. Basically, about the community and what these men, what these the boys and the girls couldn't really do anything else. Joelle brought up how rape is not a form of it's just not about sex, it's about power, and how I can't really remember, Joelle, what that point was. I'm sorry.
Probably because it was pointed on,
Huh?
but probably because there was no point at all. But I just basically piggyback on what Georgette had said, and basically you know, what are they to do? You know, the only thing that they could have really done was to lay down their lives. Somebody got to be left to tell the story. When somebody have guns and you're a child and the rest of them are grown men and they got shotguns, switchblades, 4 against, you know, the only thing you can do at that point is to throw your body at them, and you know what good would that do? So I think a lot of times we look at who's going to be the protector. You know, are you feeding your family by standing up to the white man and get fired, or are you being the protector by standing up for your rights? Or are you sucking it up, being a man, and take those things that come to you so you can push your family further on down the road? You know, and at this point, what they did the right thing. They basically retreated and fought another way, and that was a smart thing to do instead of throwing their bodies into bullets.
Right, right.
Right. In the last chapter, it did say the author pointed out that sometimes to be protected, you had to be silent, and I think the boys hiding and waiting for the truck to leave before they made a move was smart, and they just had to be quiet enough, long enough to wait for them to start heading out. It's a shame that Betty was still raped in the process, but she was also outnumbered. But I think that them trying to help her and look for her was a big deal.
Georgette, did you have anything to add?
No, that was good.
Okay.
Everything I thought too.
Okay. Thank you. Georgette, you want to read the next section?
Okay. This is Tallahassee, Florida. Bus boycott started May 26, 1956. Students react to Owens' rape. Many of the students at FAMU were villains of the student-led bus boycott started on May 26, 1956, in Tallahassee under the mentorship of C.K. Steele. They took the rape of Betty Jean Owens very seriously. They also took it personally. It was like all of us had been raped, said student activist Patricia Stevens-Dew. A small group planned an armed march to City Hall, but were persuaded out of this approach to protecting black womanhood. Instead, 1,500 students filled the school auditorium on hearing the news of the rape and arrest. They decided to petition authorities for a speedy and impartial trial. More than 1,000 students gathered the next day with signs, hymns, and prayers aimed at the national meeting. And
let's skip that question and come back to it if we have time at the end, okay?
Okay.